like to continue where the previous presentation stops. So I will speak more about the human representations in the Neolithic of Republic of Macedonia. But before that, I would like to stress my compliments for the organizers of this event, which I think will be a potent sharing of knowledge. And there will be a lot of questions and discussion afterwards, so I think it will be fruitful to be here. This note. Often when we speak about figurines or in general about human representations, most of the archaeologists consider them as scrap, as something which is absolutely not worth to be analyzed in details. Everyone considers this as history of art or just aesthetical objects, and that's why most of the archaeologists are refusing to work in detail on such objects. But if you consider this part of material culture as anything else which is analyzed in technology, as we see before, or in at least cultural level, there are a lot of informations which appears out of these objects, and they give a lot of data about the communities which were living in particular regions and how they actually develop their own identities and manifest them throughout the object. So I will not speak about the meaning and the functions of these objects. I will speak more about the regional features of the object themselves and how we can use them in further analysis of settlements and regional clusters of Neolithic villages. Okay. I will speak about two general types of human representations. There are many, but they anyway assert that there is a variety of how the human body was perceived and how the human body was shaped in clay. So in this sense, I will speak about miniatures, which are figurines, and about hybrids and specific type of hybrids, which are anthropomorphic house models. There are different hybrid objects in Neolithic, like anthropomorphic vessels, anthropomorphic stamps, anthropomorphic oven models, and some other different type of human-like objects. But for this moment, I will speak only about anthropomorphic house models, and I will start with figurines at the very beginning. So the figurines are quite small comparing to any other Neolithic finds. They are, made of clay. They are approximately between 2 centimeters and 16 centimeters. This one is nearly 6 centimeters. So in this sense, they can be easily handled. They can be put on some platform and they can represent something. They can be intentionally broken. They can be held within the clothes. They can hang somewhere. So anyway, they are miniatures, but they do resemble a lot of functions and a lot of aspects which deals with their meaning and significance. So these are some selections of figurines. I intentionally omitted to put the name of the site because I would like to speak about figurines and hybrids in more general level. So these aspects which I will present now can be applied to any other figurines and hybrids in the Balkans and in Europe in general. So that's why I will present mainly Macedonian figurines and hybrids, but they do consider as well the others in Neolithic Europe. Despite the figurines, anthropomorphic house models are quite big. So some of them can be maybe, 14 centimeters, but most of them are higher than 20 centimeters, and some of them are even nearly half meter high. So they definitely represent human body in a different way than figurines. So in that context, we can speak about more complex association of human body with the environment in the Neolithic. In this case, we have association between human body and the dwellings where the people were living. But in the other aspects of hybrids, there are associations between the human body and vessel, human body and oven, human body and some other objects which were used for everyday activities. So, as I said before, I will not go into the symbolic aspects of these objects, which is quite complex and much more interesting than just a brief presentation of their outline. But anyway, I will go to something which is more necessary for further studies of these findings. So this is also a selection of different anthropomorphic house models in Macedonia. And this is a map with the sites where most of the figurines and anthropomorphic house models are found. As you can see, they are all over the region, and in some areas they are more frequent. There is scarcity in some other sites. So anyway, this gives some kind of general overview of their disposition. When we speak about the figurines in general, we can see some basic ratios between the represented sex and the number of the figurines. So this is the number of published figurines before 2014, and it mainly asserts that they are mostly female figurines. This is under discussion, but most of the archaeologists from Greece, Albania, Bulgaria, Serbia also do agree that most of the figurines are female. In general level. Only few of them are male. Some of them could be hermaphrodites, and a quite significant number is represented by sexless figurines. In this sense, whenever we have a general model of any region, we can notice this ratio. But the problem is that this ratio doesn't give the detailed situation within the sites itself. When we go from site to site, the situation becomes quite interesting on the level of representation of sex of the figurines. So these are some of the sites which I choose in order to show these case studies, which proves that actually this general approach is quite dangerous for the study of figurines. So these are the sites from Govrlevo, Zelenikovo, Amzabegovo, and Porodin. When we make statistics of the material found within these sites, we have a different image. In some sites, it's true that most of the figurines are female, but in sites like Amzabego or the sites in general in Novchapole region, they are mainly sexless. So the communities in these settlements intended to represent something different throughout the human body. So when we make further analysis of the neighboring sites like Govrlevo and Zelenikovo, there is no pointer, but this is... So mouse up? No. Aha, okay, far. So this is Govrlevo, this is Zelenikovo. They are quite neighboring sites like Slavej, Topolčany, and Porodin in Pelagonia. And on the very periphery of Pelagonia is Rakle. So when we compare the neighboring sites, we see a lot of difference. Although they belong to the same cultural group, there are differences in the representation of human body, especially on the level what they choose to represent. So in Govrlevo, for example, there are only 13 figurines found, but there are fragments of nearly 160 anthropomorphic house models. In spite of that, in Zelenikovo, there are 13 anthropomorphic hybrids, and there are 83 figurines. So the neighboring sites, the neighboring communities which were living in the same period, share different approaches toward the representation of human body. Some were interested in a more or less realistic portrayal of human body in a miniature level, but others were more focused on hybrid relationship of human body with their environment. When we go back to the figurines only, when we also comparing neighboring sites from Pelagonia, we can see that actually some of the communities were focused on more stylized bodies, while some, like those in Porodin, were focused on more or less realistic bodies. So we can see that actually the one from Slavej, most of the figurines in Slavej, they don't have face, they don't have hair, breast, their hands are short and spread. Most of them are sexless, in spite of Porodin, where we can see most of these elements represented. These figurines are from these sites, which belongs to so-called Velushina-Porodin group. Velushina-Porodin group is typical for Pelagonian region, and there is a small branch in Ohrid region with the similar elements of Velushina-Porodin group. Amzabegovo Vršni group is much bigger. In early Neolithic, there were clusters of settlements which doesn't share the similar identities, but in the Middle Neolithic, they become some kind of union or unity, visual and cultural unity, which goes closely with Bulgarian, Serbian, Kosovo, and Albanian Middle Neolithic. So in this sense, there was something different happening in Middle Neolithic of Amzabegovo Vršni group, but in the early Neolithic, we can see quite different pieces of patterns or pieces of pottery and painted patterns, which do confirm the various identities at the very beginning of Neolithic of so-called Amzabegovo Vršni group. So this pottery is anyway different from the pottery in Pelagonia or in Velushina Porodin group, which means that definitely we have different communities which try to manifest their identity, different identities throughout the painted pottery. That's why I do consider figurines here, because most archaeologists, when they were speaking about the cultural features of the Amzabegovo group or Velushina Porodin group, they were mainly speaking about pottery. They would never consider the representation of human body. But when we include the representations, then we also do find significant differences between these groups, which confirms that there are truly various approaches toward the representation of human body, and that they are not generalized as it was interpreted before. So when we take these eponymous sites like Velushina Porodin, Vršnik, which is Starinci and Amzabegovo, so we find these main differences in the sex representation. Velushka, Tumba, and Porodin, they are belonging to Velushina Porodin group, and they mainly have female representations. While in Ovčapolje region, which is a sort of center of Amzabegovo Vršni group, most of the figurines are sexless. So we see that on the level of these cultural groups, there is also a difference in the representation of sex. Even in the representation of genitalia, there are quite significant differences. Most of the figurines which are female, they have triangular genitalia in Amzabegovo Vršni group, while in Velushina Porodin group, most of the figurines, female figurines, have this kind of round genitalia or coverings of genitalia. We don't know if they represent genitalia or they were intended to cover them, or maybe they represent human head, or maybe head of a baby. But anyway, for the moment, this is only typical for Pelagonia, as you can notice. So, in this sense, we can still confirm this kind of varieties within the sex representations. But if we go more general on the level of the human body representation, we also see significant differences between Amzabegovo Vršni group and Velushina Porodin group. I think we are running out of time, so I will not read all of them. But anyway, you can find a lot of differences between the figurines produced in, let's say, for example, in Zelenikovo and the figurines produced in Velushina. So, also on the level of the models, we have the same ratio. Most of the anthropomorphic house models in the Amzabegovo Vršni group are stylized. The cube, the model is only a cube. The hands are quite often represented. There are breast and stomach. Most of them are female. They have necklaces and bracelets. And on the roof there are 4 openings. In spite of that, in Velushina Porodin group, most of the representation of the face is individual. There is house instead of cube. They don't have hands except one model. Body is mainly consisted of cylinder. Most of them are sexless except one, and they have some kind of skirt, and they have only opening on the bottom. They don't have opening on the corners, but only on the very bottom. So there are huge differences between these groups on the level of producing house models. But it's interesting that in Amzabegovo Vršni group, most of the models which are produced are associated with burials, while in Pelagonia, which is Velushina Porodin group, there is no single burial found in the excavation of 14 sites. There is only one which is not considered as Neolithic, because it could be from a medieval necropolis, which is on the top of the tell. But anyway, it's interesting that anthropomorphic house models are mainly produced where there are no burials, while these more stylized or more anthropomorphic models are produced in settlements where there are burials. For example, if you compare again Govrlevo and Zelenikovo models, in Govrlevo there are abundance of models, and there are also some burials found within the settlements. While in Zelenikovo, where there is abundance of figurines and only few hybrids, there are no burials at all. So, which means that there is some kind of association between burials and anthropomorphic house models. When we consider burials further in comparison to figurines, we also can notice something very interesting. So I have a case study of Zabego, where we notice the decrease of number of individuals, mostly infants and females. So in the early Neolithic there are 25, and you can see the number is decreasing as it goes further. In spite of that, the number of figurines is quite small in the early Neolithic, but their number is decreasing as it goes further to the Neolithic, which means that there is some kind of shift of how the human body was ritually used in the settlement and how it was represented. So most of the figurines which are found in Amzabego are sexless, and most of the individuals which are buried in Amzabego are infants, which means children. According to a lot of ethnographic data, children are not considered as gender or as belonging to one of the main genders in the community. So in this sense, we can maybe speculate that some of the figurines could represent the children which were buried in the early Neolithic, and maybe this is kind of a shift of symbolic, how to say, use or representation of human body. It's interesting that most of the figurines which are found in Middle Neolithic were buried along with other objects within pits. So maybe it could resemble still the burying of individuals, but this is still more or less open discussion. So this is the last slide. We can also consider the relationship between the artifacts themselves. I mean, quite often they are independently represented, but it's interesting that on some of the sites, like Magyari, which was presented before, and Porodin, this is Porodin, some of the figurines are found quite close to anthropomorphic house models. So they could be in a relationship because there are a lot of other finds in Greece or in Serbia, which also, or Romania especially, which also have miniature human bodies within models of the houses. So this is a particular context from Porodin, where these figurines are found close to this anthropomorphic house model and this regular house model. So this kind of set was below the threshold, according to the report of the team which was excavating there in the 60s. So in this sense, I would like to finish this presentation with the idea that we should consider these figurines as, or human representation as, regular archaeological finds, and to use them in more detailed analysis in order to understand the communities which were living in these particular societies and their mutual relationships or their absolutely different approaches in the representation of human body. There is much more to be said about the significance and the meaning and more or less ideology of these objects, but this is a different topic which will take us to something else. So if anyone is willing to further discuss about these objects or these regional features of the objects, I'm absolutely at your service. So thank you for your attention.